Okay, breeding soundness examination. So again, a breeding soundness examination is not necessary. We're not looking to see if a bull is sterile. You know, there's a lot of bulls that have semen or some degree of semen and can certainly impregnate a cow, but fail to pass a breeding soundness examination. So kind of what a bull that passes a breeding soundness examination, what we want to say is usually those bulls would settle about 65% of the cows during their first estrus. So in the first 21 days, cows in the first estrus, he ought to settle about 65% of those. Then the cows that come through their second estrus, he ought to be able to impregnate about 65% or settle about 65% of those cows. And then again, same in the third estrus. So that's what's considered a bull that, in other words, that's what we're shooting for. A bull that would pass a breeding soundness examination. 25 cows means 16 settle the first estrus and 6 settle the second estrus. So we're getting 22 cows in the first 2 estrus cycles. Okay, so that's pretty much our standard. That's what a bull that passes a BSC, that's kind of what he's expected to perform, minimum performance. So pregnancy rates for fertile bulls, and again, during the first 21 days, they ought to settle about 65%. This is just basically a little bar showing kind of what we talked about in the last slide. Okay, PEPS data. And PEP stands for Partnership and Extension. That's a program that Extension has with producers and practicing veterinarians. In other words, it's basically using the IRM approach, bring a team in to help people work out the problems with their ranching operation. But we took this data from a PEPS herd about 4 or 5 years ago. We had a herd had some reproductive problems. He had 10 years of data, and it looked like things weren't, he just kept having more and more problems, and the problems were getting a little worse. So we did a lot of testing, looked at diseases, looked at nutrition, looked at a whole bunch of different things in these cattle, and basically come up with nothing. So we actually, one of the other specialists and I were on site when he was doing a breeding soundness examination one day. And what we noted was that the breeding soundness exam, the veterinarian doing the breeding soundness exam, just wasn't doing a complete examination. In other words, basically he was taking a drop of semen, looking at it under the microscope, and if he saw a lot of movement, then that bull was pronounced sound. Again, not a good evaluation of the internal reproductive organs, certainly, and I do believe he was measuring the scrotal circumference, but not palpating the testicles, etc. So that day, while we was over there, we took semen sample out of those bulls, carried back to the animal science building, took it up to the repro people. Anyway, we stained those out, and what we found out of those 12 bulls, there was 3 or 4 of those bulls that just had unacceptable semen. Again, this is from one of those bulls, and if you'll note, all these are pretty normal spermatozoa. This was another bull out of the same group. Now, if you'll notice in this slide, you've got a lot of coiled tails, you've got a lot of mid-piece reflexes, you've got some head defects. In other words, there's certainly 70% of these sperm, and again, we checked their spermatozoa. We went through the whole slide and actually counted them out with a cell counter, but this bull would fail the test. Both of these bulls had passed the test in the field. Okay, this bull here's very interesting, because if you notice all these little things that look like deer tracks in there, those are actually white cells. This bull had a very creamy semen. It looked good in the test tube, but the color was coming from pus. So this bull, and again, there was a little wind blowing that day, and the veterinarian, this bull he also passed because he thought he saw a lot of movement under the microscope. So again, how important, this is just demonstrating how important morphology is.